Well, like Andy mentioned, I started doing slideshows because a lot of people was letting me have copies of the pictures, and it wasn't fair for me just to keep them all. I used to watch Jim English and Frank Bousfield doing slideshows, and I used to help Jim English quite a bit. And I thought, well, I can do that. So I started doing a slideshow and talk, going around various, groups, events, schools, and things like that. Then, like Andy said, we met on the stall. Andy started coming out, helping me with the slideshows. And then we found out he was collecting stuff. I said, oh, well, I've got that. And to save us both collecting the same item and buying it, I thought, well, let's set up a little society. So we set up the Gainsborough Heritage Society to basically, so we weren't purchasing the same thing and spending money on the same thing. So if I bought one, he bought one, and then we shared them. Because we was going to the Delvers.
And we still do.
Yeah, we still do, yeah. There was various other people that knew what we was doing, and they thought, yeah, that's a good idea, wasn't it? So they joined in as well.
Yeah, and there was a few early on that joined us fairly quickly. But one interesting thing about the slideshows for me was I'd never been to a slideshow where it was almost like an open mic. So Paul would be telling you lots of stuff, but constantly listening to the audience.
He'd be at the back writing it down.
Well, they would chip in. Oh, I remember such and such, and my nan did, and so we'd be scribbling notes, and that's how the booklet started, really, because we was like all these interesting little snippets coming out, and things sort of developed. And then I say, both of us were going to the Delvers, which was just a group of like-minded people that discussed the history of the town. And then we started going to Paul Cowan's local history classes, which, funnily enough, that's where we first met Linda.
Yes.
At the history classes, even though Linda didn't join the association until a lot later, Linda Clark. But they were good, and so Paul was giving us things like copies of the maps and stuff like that. So we was already beginning to build up this big collection of information, and Paul with his photographs, and I tended to do a lot more of the writing side of it and recording things. And then it was a case of, we're getting all this information now, so what are we going to do with it? And then I think you mentioned that letter, even though you didn't put it back into the paper till later. But Paul had got a letter that was written in the 30s asking for a museum for the town, and that's how the society came about, really, wasn't it? So it was like, let's collect the stuff, but then let's have an aim and try and get a museum for Gainsborough. And that led to the Museums Forum, as Paul said. They eventually came along and asked us if we could prove that there was a need for a museum within the town. And that's how the Richmond Park exhibition came about. And we called in favours from all over for that, didn't we? So lots of people, Paul knew Jenny all really well. I used to go and sit in her shop upstairs and sift through the local history stuff. But Jenny loaned us no end of bits.
We filled cabinets full of her stuff.
Oh, cabinets like this, absolutely chock-a-block full with stuff. The vast majority of it came from Jenny, didn't it? Yeah. But that's how I remember the first meeting that we had with the Museums Forum was in my front room on Etherington Street. And there was just myself, Paul, John Stanley and David Lomas. So they were the main two from the Gainsborough Museums Forum, as it was known then, and myself and Paul from the Heritage Society. And so we agreed to do this exhibition. They got in touch. I'm not sure if it was owned by the council then, was it? Richmond House. Yeah. So they got a location for us, so we could use Richmond House.
I thought John had something to do with Friends of the Richmond House.
I think he was part of the Friends of Richmond the Richmond House and the Richmond
and the
Park,
Civic Society, because he had something to do with that. And the Civic Society used to put exhibitions on there. So John Stanley had a big connection at Richmond House.
They both had connections, really.
Yeah.
They agreed to provide some funding so we could get a lot of the stuff done, and then we had a generous anonymous donation as well, didn't we? That we know who it was from.
We had two actually, one from a lady as well, sadly not with us anymore, but there was a lot of people very helpful to get the exhibition on the go.
And it quickly snowballed into something that
you had to do most nights.
Bigger than we'd intended, really, I think, wasn't it? So Paul produced all the photographs, with the themed photographs. So there was things on the Aga, for example. We did some on the Rose National Motor Car, the floods. So they were all themed. So there was obviously stuff on Marshalls and, I think we did a series, didn't we, on different streets?
Yes.
If I remember right.
Yeah,
so there was
like,
like Church Street, and we'd pick a load of pictures from that location. And then obviously, I spent Christ knows how many nights up till whatever time of night putting all those onto panels, because we didn't do them like we do now, so we would do all that on the computer now. These were literally cut and paste. In them days was literally cut it out, so we used to print stuff out on paper and then cut it out and build the panels up. And I believe we've still got most of those panels here at the Heritage Centre. And I said people, well, they just, I think, was it 4 or 5 rooms? It was all upstairs, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 4 probably, and I thought we had one downstairs.
We absolutely filled every inch of space on the wall, on the corridor, the landing. Yeah. It was all, and it started off. We invited the schools to come.
Yeah, for a few days.
But we took a week off, didn't we?
Yeah.
In the end,
had a week off work
just to produce, to actually set it all up. So we went down for a couple of days, set everything up.
And when you think there was only me and you there for all the schools, you couldn't do it now really for safety and things.
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
There was myself and Paul. Angie and your sister came down and was doing like bits of catering and that for us, weren't they, as well? But we invited all the local schools, but I think in the end, Benjamin Adlard, Charlie Baines, Midderfield Lane, because remember there's a picture of Peter Bradshaw.
Yes, there is,
and Castle Hills came, because some of the kids wrote letters into the newspapers later on, but we've still got. But yeah, it just, well, it was mental actually, the amount of people that came.
Thousands in the snow. It was snowing as well.
Yeah, it was cold. It was was it February time?
Last week in January and through February, then I think we did it another week.
We had to do it again because
there was just thousands.
There was that many people. Well, I know Richmond House had a limit. It's a bit like this place. We have a limit for fire safety reasons on the amount of people that could come in, and we got to the point where we was having to stop people coming in while some of the others had left, which caused a bit of a queue that at one point went from the house to the gates on
the entrance to come into the park, and a bit manic.